Welcome back to the next installment of the arcs in Dragon Ball Super. These are the arcs that have continued in the manga after the anime, and today we are looking at the next arc after the Moro arc. So this is right after Goku defeats Moro, and we are into the Granolah arc. And in this video, I'm going to give a rundown of what happens in the arc in case you haven't actually read it and you just want to kind of have a brief synopsis of what actually happened in it so you can get caught up on the manga and where we are at, so that hopefully if the anime continues or if the manga continues, who knows, there's been some talks about that. So hopefully these series of videos are meant to get you caught up on everything that's going on in the world of Dragon Ball. And if you have missed the Moro video, definitely go ahead and check that out and continue to check out these videos so we can get caught up on Dragon Ball Super together. So like I said, we're going to do a recap, and then at the end I'm also going to give you my thoughts on what I think of the arc. So we start off immediately where the Moro arc ended, which kind of left us with a little bit of a cliffhanger of 7-3, who was one of Moro's crewmates, basically was still alive, and somebody had essentially gathered him and captured him and, brought him over to their ship to help, bring him back to life and help regenerate him and everything like that. And we find this mysterious bounty hunter who we later find out his name is Granolah. He's going to be a pretty important character for this next arc. And we find out that he is actually just completely overpowering everybody in the ship, and he captures and retrieves 7-3 to bring him over to a group called the Heeters, which is pretty much a family of bounty hunters, and they hire bounty hunters, and I think they're bounty hunters themselves. They also work alongside Frieza, or at least they have in the past. There's some history there, but basically they are hiring this bounty hunter named Granolah to go and do these various tasks. And one of his tasks was to pick up 7-3, bring him over to the Heeters, and they send him off on his way. So they pay him for that bounty. He goes back home to the planet Cereal, and you gotta love the references to food and other stuff like that in Dragon Ball. Akira Toriyama he was a mastermind. Rest in peace, he was great. And so we spend some time with Granolah. Basically, Granolah is the last of the Cerealins on this planet. There are other inhabitants now, these cute little people that are there, and pretty much Granolah is one of the last surviving people of his race, or really the last surviving person of his race, and he is alongside Minato on the planet, and Monito, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm going to call it Minato for the sake of the video. Minato is the last surviving Namekian on this planet as well, and so the backstory with Minato and Granolah being the last surviving members of their race on this planet, they were pretty much all just killed, decimated, completely their whole civilizations were just completely destroyed by Frieza organizing the Saiyans to go around and, basically capture all the planets and just destroy the life forms that were there and all this kind of stuff that Frieza was just wanting to do. This is, way earlier in Dragon Ball, back when he was the king of the universe, essentially. And so pretty much Granolah has a mission for himself. He knows that Frieza was the person behind all of his people dying, especially his mother, and he wants to defeat Frieza. And so he is talking with Minato, and they are just catching up on different things, and Minato is talking to Granolah about these things called the Dragon Balls. They are these wishing orbs that grant you wishes as long as it's within the wishing dragon's power. And of course, we all know what Dragon Balls are, but Granolah has never heard of them, and he is pretty gullible throughout the whole arc that is going on here, and that kind of feeds into some of the things that he does. So essentially, he finds out about the Dragon Balls, he finds out he can he can get himself a wish, and Minato is trying to encourage him not to do a wish for selfish desires and intents, but essentially, through a series of events, Granolah finds the Dragon Balls. Now, on this planet, there are only 2 Dragon Balls, and that's all that they need to be able to summon the dragon. And there's also no time limit or cooldown period for when you use the Dragon Balls. Normally on Earth, you have to wait a year to be able to use them again. On this planet, there is no cooldown period, so you basically can just continue to use the Dragon Balls. It's pretty interesting, at least how it's all convenient on this planet, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, basically, he summons the dragon, and he makes one wish, and the one wish is to make himself the strongest fighter in the universe. And that is granted to him, but there's a catch. Essentially, he cannot just become the strongest fighter, but what the dragon is able to do is condense all of the strength that he would have earned throughout his 200-year lifespan as a cerealian and condense that into his body as it is now. But the catch is that it will dramatically shorten his lifespan down to 3 years left. And so Granolah decides to do this because he is very intent on defeating Frieza at whatever means necessary. Now, the problem is that Granolah does not know where Frieza is, so he goes to the heeters, the people that hire him as a bounty hunter, and they are very particular in what they want to do. So basically, the heeters want to take down Frieza themselves, but they want to take down Frieza so that they can take his spot, and so that if they can take his spot, they can rule the universe, they can rule all of Frieza's army, and really, at the end of the day, they can just get rich. That's sort of their main thing, is they just want to get money and get rich, and money is power in their eyes, basically. But they know that if they tell Granolah exactly where Frieza is, then they know that Granolah will essentially take Frieza's spot, or at least that's what they think Granolah will want to do, and they don't want to serve Granolah, they want to serve themselves. And so they essentially come up with this sort of idea of this plan to get the two remaining Saiyans, Goku and Vegeta, or at least, the full-blooded Saiyans that we have in the series. They're gathering the two current strongest fighters in the universe that they are aware of. They grab them from Earth and convince them to come and take out this bad guy, Granolah, and essentially they're hoping that in the midst of this battle, maybe they're all going to weaken each other or take each other out or something like that, and then basically whoever is left remaining can defeat Frieza, and somehow Frieza can get involved, and then they're hoping that everybody just dies so that they can become the next rulers of the army of Frieza. Again, I'll give my thoughts on some of these things a little bit later on in the video, but that's essentially where we're at about, a quarter of the way or about a third of the way through the arc. So they bring Goku and Vegeta over to the planet Cereal where Granolah is, and Granolah finds out that these are the last two remaining, sort of full-blooded Saiyans, and these were the people that just completely decimated his whole civilization, were responsible for his mother's death, and all this kind of stuff. So they duke it out in a very big battle, and Goku before he actually came over here to the planet Cereal, Goku was off training with Whis and learning to really hone his Ultra Instinct, but he sort of has a problem where he needs to sort of claim that power as his own and not really think of it as a transformation or, something that he needs to get into. It's something that he needs to sort of turn into his own power, whether that be he's able to just instinctively use it all the time, or maybe put his own spin on the power, but essentially Whis is trying to train Goku to help hone that Ultra Instinct. Meanwhile, Vegeta was training with Beerus, sort of training. Beerus was just destroying stuff and basically saying, hey, Vegeta, want to come check this out? And so Vegeta came over, was watching that, and was essentially learning the tactics of the God of Destruction. And so when Goku and Vegeta are brought over to the planet Cereal, they are as powered up as they possibly can be. So Goku is the first one to fight. They're sort of taking turns because they don't really like to fight together. That's just their Saiyan pride. This is Dragon Ball we're talking about, and Goku is up first. He is using his Ultra Instinct, and this is also the perfected Ultra Instinct that we are familiar with the silver hair. He has perfected this in the previous arc, and he is holding his own, sort of, against Granolah. Granolah is very new to having all of this massive strength that he has now, and so he's not really using it to his fullest ability. Otherwise, if he was perfectly adapted to it, he would be able to just take Goku and Vegeta out, ideally very quickly. But because it is all new to him, he is taking his time. He's very rough around the edges. He doesn't know how to really handle all of his techniques that well, and Goku is at least able to survive, but he does eventually lose that initial battle with Granolah. Now Vegeta comes in, and Vegeta is losing the fight as well. But Vegeta has a trick up his sleeve. He has a new transformation called Ultra Ego. And naming aside, it is a very interesting technique. It is a very interesting transformation where basically the more damage that Vegeta takes, the stronger he becomes. And it's very interesting. I'll give all of my thoughts on that again a little bit later in the video. But at this point in the battle, Vegeta is winning. He is savagely beating Granolah, but in his battle with Granolah and in getting powered up to use the Ultra Ego move, and just even during his Ultra Ego transformation, he was continuing to take attacks. He wasn't blocking any attacks. He was just, if Granolah was coming at him with full strength with a punch or a Chi Blast, Vegeta was just taking all of those hits just so that he could get stronger and stronger and stronger. And essentially he needed to do that to be able to fight Granolah, but he was pushing past his limit. Unfortunately, it was taking on too much damage and eventually wasn't able to maintain that transformation and reverted back to normal, and Granolah just took him out. Now, during this time, the heaters actually go and find those 2 Dragon Balls that, again, don't have any sort of cooldown period, so they're able to just summon the dragon, and what they use for their wish is to wish for one of their members named Gas, who is innately very strong and has a sort of inner power and sort of inner beast that's within him that can't be controlled, and he's extremely strong and just pretty wild, but they decide to wish Gas to now become the current strongest warrior in the universe. And so because they're wishing this after Granolah wished the same thing, they're basically essentially wishing for Gas to be stronger than Granolah. So Gas becomes the new strongest warrior in the universe and takes out Granolah, and Goku and Vegeta as well. They are down on their ropes, and eventually they sort of are able to get away from Gas, or maybe this was just before the battle with Gas, but essentially Granolah and Goku and Vegeta, or maybe it was just Goku and Vegeta. I think it was just Goku and Vegeta are sort of set off to the side, and they're talking to the Namekian Minato. And Minato is very old, and he was here for the, extinction of the Cerealians and the Namekians on this planet. So he is familiar with the heaters and their involvement in that. He is familiar with Saiyan history and Frieza and everything like that. And essentially, we get a sort of flashback chapter where we find out that the Saiyans came to the planet Cereal years ago, probably about 40 years ago, and they were just killing all of the Cerealians, and one of the Saiyans that were there was Bardock, the father of Goku. And so Bardock is there, and he wasn't as sort of inherently evil as the other Saiyans at the time. He had a ounce of goodness to him in his heart and in his true motives and, morality and everything like that. And so he was on the planet and essentially found Granolah, a sort of baby Granolah, younger kid. He was maybe 4 or 5 at the time, and his mother. And he decided to spare them and protect them. But in this moment of deciding to spare and protect them, the heaters essentially found out that Bardock was protecting them, and the heaters at that time, including Gas, were trying to essentially just kill all of the Cerealians that were left, which were basically Granolah and his mother, and also kill Bardock as well because he had defected and was trying to protect the people he was supposed to kill. And so in this moment, in this interaction, the main boss of the heaters kills Granola's mom, and so he is the sole reason why Granola's mother is no longer there, and this is the same person that hires Granolah to go off on bounty hunts and all this kind of stuff. And so he kills Granola's mother, and Bardock is off facing against Gas, and they're duking it out, but Bardock is losing the fight because Gas is just inherently very strong, and he has this inner beast about him that is just extremely overpowered from all measures. Essentially, we find out that Minato, that Namekian, summons the dragon to hopefully wish Bardock away, because at this point, Granola's mother has been killed, and Minato feels that he is just going to die. Essentially, there's no hope for him, and Granola's probably going to die as well, and so he's trying to send Bardock away and at least spare somebody's life in this scenario. But Bardock refuses to leave the battle and decides that instead he wants to wish for his two sons to thrive. Essentially, his two sons, Goku and Raditz, he wishes for them to be able to survive the impending onslaught of Frieza essentially trying to kill all the Saiyans. And so, yeah, because of his wish, that essentially led to a series of events that led Goku and Raditz to be able to survive. And so in all of this, basically Minato is in present time explaining all of this to Goku and Vegeta because Goku is the spitting image of Bardock, and the moment that Minato saw Goku, he remembered Bardock, he remembered that this must be his son because of their sheer similarities in appearance. And so, yeah, basically Goku learned the history of his father. He, for the first time in the entire history of Dragon Ball, canon history at least, Goku has met, sort of, not really met his dad, but at least got to, see his face, remember what his face will look like, and be able to remember, and even hear his voice in the scouter that he had. And so, yeah, it was a really touching moment to read that in the manga itself. But what this is doing is it's encouraging Goku to now transform Ultra Instinct to... This whole time, Whis is telling him that Ultra Instinct is based off of being emotionless and not having any sort of, sway in your heart one way or another, to be calm and still. And that is not Goku. If you've watched or read Dragon Ball for more than 5 minutes, that is not Goku. He is an emotional and very, just not calm person. And so basically what Goku is essentially doing is turning Ultra Instinct into his own power and claiming it for his own. And now it is this Ultra Instinct that is based off of emotion, and it's based off of, he doesn't have silver hair anymore. He has black hair, but he has the sort of the same silver eyes that he normally would have with that perfected form. And so this is basically Goku's ultimate peak transformation, at least at this point in the manga. And so, yeah, Goku is taking out Gas, and Gas somehow has a final form above the inner beast that Goku had been fighting at this point in the arc, and Gas's final form was stronger than Goku's perfected, mastered, and turned into his own Ultra Instinct. And so Gas was defeating Goku, but essentially his power was too much for his body to handle, so his body was aging and breaking, and he was dying essentially because his body could not handle the amount of power that Gas had. And so, yeah, basically we're about to come up to the end of the arc right now, because all of this time we've been talking about Frieza and how, Granolah wants to defeat Frieza, and the Heeters want to defeat Frieza. Everybody wants to take Frieza's spot, essentially. And Frieza comes in at the last second and takes out Gas and knocks out Goku and Vegeta, and then flees and leaves. That's pretty much the end of the arc. Granolah is now a good guy. He holds no grudge against Goku and Vegeta. He understands that, for one, they were not part of the Saiyan attack on the planet Cereal. He also understands that Goku and Vegeta are generally, good-hearted. Goku, obviously, but Vegeta, if you read between the lines, he's a pretty good-hearted person as well. And he also understands that Bardock, Goku's father, was also the one that saved his mother, or was trying to save him, rather, and was trying to protect him and his mother. And so, yeah, Granolah is now essentially a good guy, and he's staying on the planet Cereal to help rebuild the planet and everything like that, at least in his short remaining lifespan that is left, which at this point, again, is about 3 years. And Goku and Vegeta go off to train with Beerus and Whis, so that they now have a new goal to defeat Frieza's new level, which Frieza is very strong now because, and I should probably explain this as well before I get into my thoughts on it, but basically, during this whole time where everyone's wishing to be the strongest person in the universe, Frieza was technically not in the universe because he was in a basically hyperbolic time chamber, and so he was essentially outside of the universe. He was outside of the dimension, in a different dimension, and so Frieza was spared from that. He was also training. So he was essentially spending about 10 years worth of time training in the hyperbolic time chamber. Now he is way overpowered, way stronger than Goku and Vegeta and Gas, probably Granolah, all combined into one person. He is stronger than all of that because now he has a new form, Black Frieza or Frieza Black. And so, yeah, that is a new plateau that Goku and Vegeta now have to try and defeat Frieza in this ultimate form of his. Now on to my thoughts on the arc, and let me tell you, there were some really high points, but there were some really weird and low points in my opinion. So let me just kind of go over the high points first. So I really enjoyed, I've been really enjoying seeing Vegeta in the Moro arc and the Granolah arc because I'm seeing so much character development in Vegeta, and I'm seeing so many instances where he is just really showing how much he has grown and developed as a character development. It's just great seeing that in Vegeta. And so a specific instance that I really like is during the battle, they only had one senzu bean, and at this point in the battle, Gas was taking out everyone. He had just beaten Granolah, and Granolah was on like the brink of death, and Goku was off trying to fight Gas and instant transmission him all over to different planets and stuff like that. And Vegeta had already been savagely beaten by Granolah and by Gas as well. And there's one senzu bean left. And essentially, or no, maybe Goku was still there. I think he was just like lying out and Minato was trying to heal him. But essentially, everyone was down and there was one senzu bean left. Everyone is thinking that Vegeta is going to give that to Goku so that Goku can use the Ultra Instinct to defeat Gas. Instead, Vegeta gives that senzu bean to Granolah because at this point they have learned the history of what the Heeters' involvement has been with Granolah's backstory and how Granolah wants to avenge his people, avenge his mother. So Vegeta gives that senzu bean to Granolah and says, "Don't let this opportunity go to waste. I want you to defeat Gas," essentially is what I'm saying. And so it really shows Vegeta's thoughtfulness. It really shows, what he has grown as a character. And so it's really fun to see that. I also really enjoyed Granolah as a character. He has like the Trunks effect to me, where he is somebody that came from completely left field and had no prior mention to his character. And he has a really interesting backstory. And he's also a character that is not like readily available. Like future Trunks is not like readily available, that he's just like there in present time and can help jump in to fight Majin Buu or, be in the Tournament of Power and stuff like that. He's not like readily available to help, but he is a really cool character that is in the mythos of Dragon Ball. And Granolah is kind of like that as well. He's way off in like the far distant part of the galaxy, and he's not somebody that he doesn't know instant transmission. He's also pretty rough around the edges in terms of not really knowing the full extent of his powers. And so, yeah, he's just a really interesting character, and I really liked him. He's a very likable character. His design is really cool, too. Just a really cool guy, and he is somebody that I would really love to see if they continue the anime. It would be really cool to see Granolah in animation. He just seems like a really cool and interesting character. I also like that we got some more backstory with Bardock and the history of the Saiyans and Goku's lineage and stuff like that. And I really liked that Goku put his own spin on Ultra Instinct, and there's no really name for it, but it's just that it's fueled by his emotions now, and his emotions are not like a bad thing. And so his Saiyan rage fuels that even more. I also really liked Vegeta's Ultra Ego transformation. The name I wasn't a big fan of, but Vegeta having a good, fun technique like that nobody else can use, at least that we're aware of, is really interesting. On to some of the things that I didn't like, and I'm going to start with like small things I didn't like up to like bigger things, just for like pacing of the video. Some small things I didn't really like were just like instances where like I feel like we just like forgot what Ultra Instinct is. So when Goku is using Ultra Instinct, Ultra Instinct is supposed to be where nobody can land a hit on him, at least a hit that he is aware of. His body is able to instinctively dodge moves. Ultra Instinct. I can understand, and I think they might have said that he's able to dodge anything that comes his way, but I can understand if that is maybe like, he can dodge moves that he's aware of. So maybe if somebody's doing like a sneak attack on him, even when he's in Ultra Instinct from behind, maybe he's like completely unaware of it. Maybe he can still get hit that way. But there are instances, even when he has fully developed the Ultra Instinct and turned it into his own, he's still getting hit head on in the face by gas, by somebody that is not an angel or a god of destruction, somebody that has no divine powers. When that happens, like, I can understand Goku not being like physically stronger because of Ultra Instinct, but I would appreciate the consistency of, if he's not supposed to get hit, maybe he's not supposed to get hit. And so I don't know, it just like bugs me, because now it's just this transformation that he can do, and it's just this thing that's just added to the roster of Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3, God, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. It's just this other just thing to where, like, I'll get to this a little bit later, but basically it's like it just, where he was at the end of Super with perfecting Ultra Instinct in the tournament was sort of peak Goku, at least in my opinion. And it was like this thing that's like, it wasn't a transformation anymore. It was this state that he can be in, and just, yeah, it's just, that's a whole other thing. But it just feels like it really diminishes what Ultra Instinct is. Now it's just another form that he can still get hit in if somebody's fast and strong enough, which again defeats the point of what Ultra Instinct is. I also thought that it was interesting that there wasn't really a traditional villain. So there kind of was a traditional villain, I guess, if we say that Oil was the traditional villain. So he was the biggest brother in this family of the Heeters, and he did not care about using gas or using his other siblings. And he basically, didn't care about their well-being. He was well aware that Gas was going to die from having all of this power and unleashing the inner beast, because his body couldn't contain it and stuff like that. And so you could say that he was like sort of the traditional villain, but then he just kind of just got like blasted away in one panel by Frieza. And then that was it. And like, there wasn't, I almost thought that, like, because they didn't show him explicitly wishing for Gas to become the strongest warrior. At least I don't think they explicitly showed that, but they mentioned it later on. And so as I was reading, I was thinking that we were eventually going to come to like a plot twist where he actually wished that he was the strongest in the universe, and that he only told that to Gas so that he had more gas in the tank to want to fight for him, and to want to, be more encouraged to beat the Saiyans and to beat Granolah and beat Frieza eventually. But that never happened. So it's like Oil's character was just this sort of meddling older brother that just didn't care for anyone and just wanted to use everyone. He just wasn't an interesting villain, an interesting antagonist. He was just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy him at all. But probably my biggest problem with the arc is that the more that I read the manga, the more I'm realizing that it should have ended with the Tournament of Power. Because, and I kind of understand why they continued the manga after the Tournament of Power, because essentially everything that's happening in Super should be happening right before that final scene in Dragon Ball Z, where it was the big time skip of, I think it was like 10 years, and we're seeing, Goku, and he's very clearly, way stronger than anyone else around him, and he, before he goes off to train with Oob and stuff like that, it's like all of that stuff that was supposed to happen at the end of Z is taking into account Dragon Ball Super, and clearly that, when they were creating the end of Z, they didn't know every single thing that was going to happen in Super. Maybe Akira Toriyama did, I don't know, but I'm going to wager to say maybe we didn't know every single detail, but that's besides the point. I can understand why the manga just physically kind of had to keep going, because the Tournament of Power was like within like a year or two after the end of Z, and so that would have meant like 8 to 10 years of like nothing happening in the entire world of Dragon Ball between Tournament of Power and the end of Z. So I understand that there's some stuff there. There's a lot of stuff that can fill in the space, but it's like the Moro arc was a little bit of a letdown for me because Goku was still, learning to master Ultra Instinct, even though he mastered it in the Tournament of Power, but it was like a temporary master, I guess. And then I don't know, just there were some things with the Moro arc. And again, I did that video and gave my thoughts on the Moro arc there. But for the sake of this arc, there's just instances where it just feels like, like, okay, this is Dragon Ball that we're talking about, so we can't expect like super deep storytelling and everything like that, but I'm starting to get pretty tired of villains like having a super strong final form that just completely does away with all of the character development that the protagonist just had. Taken point, Ultra Ego Vegeta, I think he should have been able to take down Granolah and defeat him there. I think that would have been great for at least Ultra Ego Vegeta to take down Granolah and win that fight. Just win it. And then Gas can come and still overpower Ultra Ego. Maybe Ultra Ego Vegeta, took too much damage from his fight in Granolah. Even though he beat him, he still took too much damage from him that a new fighter coming in and joining the fray was just going to be too much for him. I would have preferred something like that. Just that way it had, Vegeta at least having that moment of winning something, defeating somebody, and then the fact that he lost in that example, it wouldn't have necessarily been because he's just a weak fighter and he just wasn't strong enough. It would have just been by sheer just there were too many people for him to fight. It would have been too much damage for him to take. I would have preferred that, but no, we instead got Vegeta having Ultra Ego, winning for like half of a chapter, and then losing to the same person because he took too much damage and because it was his fault that he, just took too much damage and wasn't avoiding blasts and stuff like that. And I'm hoping that in the future, if he uses it, that maybe, he learns from that instance and doesn't take on too much damage. Maybe that's what's going to happen in the next arc. Who knows? We'll find out in the next video. But yeah, that was disappointing. And then Goku honing Ultra Instinct, turning that into his own thing. And then within that same chapter, Gas pulls a complete extra final form that is way stronger than anything that they have ever that they have ever fought him in, and was enough to overpower Goku in this whole thing. And it was this whole emotional thing of Goku thinking back to how Bardock, was essentially using the same technique. I didn't even mention this in the recap. Bardock basically had a sort of Saiyan Ultra Instinct, and that's how he was able to beat Gas years ago, and that's how he was able to flee and get to the, planet Vegeta and everything that happened with, Frieza there. That's how Bardock defeated him, and Goku essentially did the same thing, and he went through this whole emotional thing of remembering his father and all of that kind of stuff. And within that same chapter, or maybe it was like half a chapter later, but he loses to the same person. It's just, yeah, all right. And then Frieza coming out of nowhere and training for 10 years, or was it 10 years or 10 months? It was 10 something. I'm pretty sure it was the equivalent of 10 years. It was supposed to be this big thing to show the massive gap in power between Goku and Frieza. It might have been 10 months because he only trained for 3 months to be able to get the golden form. So yeah, maybe it was 10 months. I don't know. The point is, Frieza was conveniently outside of the universe, and that's fine because it fits within the world that is true, at least in the world of Dragon Ball, that if you go in the hyperbolic time chamber, you're in a different dimension, which is why time works differently, so that's all fine. But he shows up to the planet, kills Gas without even talking to anyone, kills Gas, and then, or maybe he talked to them a little bit, but like didn't like really like have a conversation, like a deep conversation, and then knocks out Goku and Vegeta, and then dips. Like, like I don't. why didn't you just take Goku and Vegeta out if you hate them so much, and if you are wanting to fight them again in the future? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's looking for somebody and stuff like that. And I'm sure, maybe we'll find that out in the next arc. I don't know if that's part of the next. Or I don't even know a thing about the next arc, to be honest. So I don't know if we're gonna find out all the answers to that in the next arc or not. But yeah, it's just like there were just instances where it was like, what are we doing here? And it's like, I feel like Super really should have ended in the Tournament of Power, but if they also did the Tournament of Power like several years later, or like if all of Super happened, I don't know, like 5 years after Z, or something like that, to where there wouldn't have been that big of a time gap between Tournament of Power and End of Z. I don't know. I feel like the anime finished off in a good spot in the Tournament of Power. It would be great to see the Moro arc and Granolah arc animated. That would be cool to see, but to me, it just feels so like weird and sort of haphazardly thrown together that it's just like, what's going on? Like, do we have a plan? Are we just like throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks? And I'm trying not to be like too like harsh on it too, because like this is the world that Akira Toriyama created, and I've talked about it before. I mean, Akira Toriyama shaped my life. He shaped the lives of so many other people in so many ways, in Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and just everything. I mean, it's Dragon Ball has been, and Dragon Ball wasn't his only thing that he had ever worked on before too. Let me just say, but so like I'm not trying to like completely trash on the legacy of what he has done specifically in Super. And that's not to say that Z is perfect and everything like that. But it's, and I have to look into it more. I mean, maybe there's another writer, or maybe Super isn't entirely Akira Toriyama. And so that might be the case. And I might have just said something that was like, oh, well, duh, everybody knows that. Well, I don't, because I don't sit and like follow up on the writers and everything like that of every series that I'm reading. So if that's the case, let me know down below. I would love to know. I just don't actively go out of my way to find out, who is the specific writer that, did this arc, or, wrote this character or whatever. I'm just assuming it was all Akira, but I don't know. Anyways, that's the Granolah arc. So let me know down below what you think about the Granolah arc. Let me know if I'm way off base on any of my opinions, or if you agree on anything. I would really love to hear from you. And if you stuck around this long, please hit the like button on your way out. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, which is right next to it too, and click on either one of these two videos. And if you want to see my thoughts on the next arc that is coming up, make sure you subscribe for that, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.